been asked to speak about the Anarchist Studies Network. It is a specialist group of the Political Studies Association, but it's much wider than that. It encourages research and work on anarchism in and outside the academy. It was set up about 15 years ago, and it takes researchers from a broad range of disciplines and finds avenues of mutual aid and support and ways in which we can assist one another and activist groups. There is a ASN list which you can email me and be join. I'm the membership secretary. There is a website. If you email me, I'll get the website address for you. If you just Google my name and University of Glasgow, you'll get me, and I'll pass on all the information. There's a Facebook page in which we announce conferences and events of mutual interest, and hopefully I'll take questions if there are any at the end. Thank you. Oh, and there's a non-binary and women's group as well, which maybe Elizabeth would like to discuss as well.
Thanks, Ben. My name's Jim Donaghy. I'm another member of the Anarchist Studies Network. We're now going to do short overviews from several of our members, talking about the research that they do. To make sure we can include as many people as possible, we're going to have a very strict 2-minute time limit for everybody speaking. I don't know if there's a reputation for people working in academia to be long-winded, so maybe this will be a bit of fun if people get cut off. Let's see who we can call up first. Perhaps we could call up Erik Larsson. Would you like to kick things off for us?
Sure, thanks.
You got your video up, Erik? Sorry.
Yeah,
here it comes. Here it comes. Thanks very much. Right, I'll give you 2 minutes on here, and I'll flash back up when there's 30 seconds to go.
Got it.
Okay. Thanks, Erik.
Okay, I'm off and running then. I'm Erik Larsson, and I'm an independent scholar, journalist, and activist. I'm also one of the founders of the New York City Anarchist Bookfair and organizers. My current area of study is the state. What is it in the 21st century, its relationship with capitalism, and how we can develop a strategy as anarchists for shaking it off. My book, The Operating System and Anarchist Theory of the State, came out in May. In it, I'm proposing that the state is more than just government. Briefly, it's actually a little bit like a computer operating system is the analogy that I make. A form of human organization that aspires to create a total social, cultural, and functional environment for all of us, build on the creation of wealth and enabling it to continuously expand and deepen its powers. Individual states compete with each other, but collectively they work to build and extend the state model and fasten it onto new territories and environments. I'm hoping that my book will inspire more anarchists to offer their own analyses of the state. That's because in a time of collective climate change, worsening economic inequality, and mass population displacement, we need to find ways to shake off the state just to preserve our humanity and preserve humanity and the earth itself. But discussion of the state has been kind of dormant in anarchist circles for a long time, and I want to change this. At the same time, thank you. At the same time, I'm pushing my study into new areas, including how the state controls populations, manages populations, how it privileges and keeps its activities secret, and the special role the United States has played since World War II in building the state into a global monoculture. On a different but related note, I'm currently finishing a biography of Alex Comfort, who is an English anarchist, poet, biologist, and the author of the bestseller, The Joy of Sex.
Thanks, Erik. I'm so glad I got to use my special buzzer. I hope that wasn't too traumatic. Thank you for sharing all of that. We hope to, if anybody wants to find out more about the Alex Comfort stuff at the end, I know I do. Hopefully there'll be chance for a chat afterwards. Thank you very much for that. All right, next up in the terrifying Russian roulette of picking people is John Bigger there. Would you like to have a go?
Well, Hello.
Is your video coming, John?
Yeah, it is coming. Hello. Yes. Well, hello.
On the way.
Hello.
Oh, magical Loughborough.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. So am I ready to start now?
Let's go. Cassio says go.
Okay. So earlier this year, I finished my thesis on the UK group Class War and the fact that they stood candidates in the 2015 general election here. I'm hoping that I might maybe one day get a book deal out of that, but I'll have to see on that front. I don't have an academic job, and I've seen enough not to really want one, unless anyone's got any offers, but they'd have to be really good. But I enjoy writing. I like writing a range of things. Most of my work can be found at my website, which is called John Bigger Journal of Anarchy. I recently wrote an anarchist essay for the ARG podcast series about anarchism and the BBC show Doctor Who. And I'm going to follow that up with an essay on the Daleks from that series and anti-fascism. I'm going to spend a lot of time writing about Doctor Who. I think it's combining two of my passions. I also wrote a blog post for the Anarchist Studies website recently on the use of the word libertarian to describe Boris Johnson, Prime Minister here. And that was a follow-up itself from a previous piece I wrote for my regular column on British politics in Freedom newspaper. And I think it's via Freedom that I get most of my attention, really. And this is something that I reflect a lot on, especially in times of crisis. Freedom can be the place that people go to first for their anarchist news and views. And it's important that we kind of respect that and respect the reader and make sure that we're as accurate as possible, even when it's an opinion piece. And finally, I'm interested in writing something soon. I've been thinking of a title. All I've got is the title so far. So I'll run this past you. Everything I know about activism, I learned from Jesus Christ Superstar. I'm not sure it's entirely true, but I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm going to do that. That's it from me.
You beat the buzzer, John. I'm terribly disappointed.
I'm pleased.
I'll play it anyway. All right. Thanks, John. All right. Okay, who's next? Let's have Wayne Price, please. Would you like to share your video and your audio? Here we are. Hi, Wayne. How you doing? Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready to go.
All right. Your time starts now.
Yep. All right. I'm Wayne Price. I live in New York City and in North America in the belly of the beast. I am an independent scholar, like most of the people here on this list, on this discussion. I've written a few books, one of which is The Value of Radical Theory, An Anarchist Introduction to Marx's Critique of Political Economy. I identify as a revolutionary anarchist socialist. I have areas of study and research. I've concentrated on defending and developing the class theory of the state, using both anarchist and Marxist theories as background, which is part of my broader interests in integrating anarchism with aspects of Marxism in the tradition of Daniel Guérin. My work can be found on essays and articles on anarchismo.net, as well as on in the Anarchist Library. And I appreciate ASN giving me this time to talk. Thank you.
You've beat the buzzer as well, Wayne. Good timing. This is very disappointing. Thanks very much. As I said, if anybody's got further questions for anybody speaking or issues they want to talk about in terms of anarchist academia more widely, we're going to open this up to a wider discussion afterwards. Okay, who should we have next? Lawrence Davis is going to be speaking twice. I'll call him up now. whether he wants to talk about the Manchester Uni Press Contemporary Anarchist Studies series or his own research. He can decide, but we'll call him up now and again later. So, Lawrence, whatever you choose to do now, we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Jim. I think I'll start, if that's okay, with the Contemporary Anarchist Studies book series.
Absolutely.
So Contemporary Anarchist Studies is the first peer-reviewed English language series in anarchist studies by a major international academic publisher. We've been going for 11 years now, and we're currently partnered with and published by Manchester University Press in the UK. Our paperback titles are, I think, affordably priced, and all of our books are published under a Creative Commons license and are marketed and distributed internationally, including now by AK Press. We're always on the lookout for new book proposals, for original manuscripts that exemplify, in particular, cutting-edge, socially engaged scholarship, bridging theory and practice, academic rigor, and the insights of contemporary activism. So if you have an idea for a book, please do get in touch with any or all of the series editors, Alex Pritchard, Yuri Gordon, Nathan Junn, and myself. And further information about the series can be found on the Contemporary Anarchist Studies Manchester University Press website. Thanks.
Excellent timing once again. Thank you for that. Okay, we'll let you off for now, Lawrence, and I'll call on you later for your own research. Let's now hear from Soren Howe. Would you like to share audio and video?
Am I on?
You're on. Okay. You ready to start?
Sure thing.
Here we go.
Cool. So thanks so much, and thanks for having me. My name is Soren Howe, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Cambridge. I'm here to briefly highlight a project I'm working on with Christopher Cocard, who some of you may know, on the historical anarchist Marie Goldsmith. Marie Goldsmith, who lived from July 7, 1871 to January 11, 1933, was a Jewish Russian emigre who lived most of her life in Paris. She earned her PhD in biology at the Sorbonne, contributing significantly to the fields of evolutionary biology and psychology. In parallel, she was an instrumental theorist of anarchism. Her status as Peter Kropotkin's most frequent correspondent, barring his brother, offers a clear indication of her significance, not only to Kropotkin, but to all of their colleagues. According to Gregory Maximoff, she was, quote, the only one Kropotkin considered capable, unquote, of continuing his work, and, quote, both in scientific training and in spirit, unquote. Based on our research in primary, secondary, and tertiary documentation, we plan to collate her writing and biography in a series of publications, including books, to help revive her forgotten legacy in the 21st century. We will argue for her inclusion in the European anarchist canon and for restoring her historical position as an influential, well-connected figure of early 20th century political and scientific discourse. If you're interested in this project or information, documentation that you would like to share with us, feel free to contact us at the at Marie Goldsmith Project. That's one word, Marie Goldsmith Project @gmail.com. And as an aside, please also check out the anarchist publication, The Commoner, which is not an academic journal, but you can check that out at thecommoner.org.uk. So I highly recommend checking that out. Some of my work's over there, and I think they do great work. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Well timed again. Thank you.
I practice.
I can tell. Thanks. Okay, who shall we have next? I think Benjamin Franks. Let's hear from you again, shall we? What have you been up to research-wise?
Hiya.
How's it going?
I'm Benjamin Franks. Just talk about my research in the past. I was interested in the principles by which anarchists made decisions about 20 years ago. That was my big interest was, or 30 years ago, contesting the lay academia and others portrayed anarchists as either irrational or inconsistent or amoral or just subjectivist or libertarian rights-based theorists. And instead, I became interested in anarchist ethics, about issues around prefiguration, unmediated action, doing it ourselves, anti-hierarchy, anti-domination, principles of positive freedom, which inform all of this, which create as it were a virtuous account of social relations. And my aim was to try and improve my own practice and reflect on the groups I was involved in. So more recently, this has informed how we look at different practices, anarchist practices and those practices which are differing from anarchism and where they intersect in notions of hybridity. So we get things like green anarchism or intersections with anarchism and cultural practice like anarchist gardening, perhaps, or anarchist forms of music, Jim, and those intersections which are well outside of the anarchist family, like things like nationalist anarchism or anarcho-capitalism, in order to find areas of solidarity. Where could we find areas of common interest, and how should we resist forms of co-option?
Well done, Ben. Thank you for that. Everyone's been rehearsing. Okay, let's now hear from Ian Mackay, please.
Can you hear and see me? Yeah.
We can hear and see you. Are you ready to begin?
Yes.
Off you go.
I'm a Scottish communist anarchist. In terms of politically, just to say, my favourite dead anarchist is Malatesta, so that's where I'm coming from. I think it's important to understand how we got here in order to get to where we're going. And I would say that the anarchist suggestion has got a lot to be proud of, and I don't think we sort of say that enough, and we should be more sort of confident about our politics. So far, in terms of research, Anarchist FAQ, basically restating basic concepts and then resource to draw upon on like economics, Russian Revolution and so forth, also debunking claims and attacks on anarchism, most of which are utter crap and quite shameful in terms of the quality. From there, I moved on to Proudhon and the properties first anthology, because the Proudhon I was reading for the FAQ wasn't the Proudhon which was in common circulation. And from that, I recently debunked the notion he advocated labour notes. Then I moved on to Kropotkin, mutual aid still holds up, still contribution to science. Moved on to the anthology Direct Struggle Against Capital, debunking the anarcho-Santa myth, and then helped get Modern Science and Anarchy, his last book, into English for the first time. Also did the English anarchist George Barrett pamphlets and articles, who was quite an important figure in the First World War era, and forgotten, he shouldn't be. Also writing for Anarcho-Syndicalist Review and the webpage Anarchist Writers. To come, Woods of a Rebel, new translation, that's coming out. A Libertarian Reader, 4 volumes, Anarchism, Guild Socialism, Council Communism, and so forth. Camilo Beneri anthology, and we have recently relaunched Black Flag Anarchist Review, in which I debunked Shapiro's claims of Proudhon being a fascist. And
I got to use my buzzer, but that was great, Ian. Thanks for that. I for one was delighted to see Black Flag back in circulation. It's great to hear about your research. Thank you for that. Hopefully we can carry on the conversation later. Okay, and who else have we got? Yeah, I think we should have Elizabeth Vasileva. Would you like to join us, please?
Can you see me and hear me?
We can see you and hear you. You ready to begin?
Great. Yes. God, that was terrifying. Okay, go. Okay, so I am I'm unemployed. I finished my my PhD a few years ago, but I am actually part of an institution called Free University of Brighton, which is a free university project, and I don't have much time for research, but I do a bit of research with them. I write mostly about anarchism and Deleuze, and various kind of intersections between anarchism and post-structuralism. I wrote my PhD also on ethics, so I was actually reading quite a lot of stuff that people here have written when I was writing it. What am I researching now? I don't know. I guess a bit of like anarchism and what's been going on in the last year. So I think some people call it kind of crisis management anarchism, not crisis anarchism, disaster anarchism. That's it, disaster anarchism. Just things that have been happening in the last few years with the pandemic, and recently wrote something about mutual aid during the pandemic. Everything is pretty much from kind of a Deleuze Spinozian angle. Yeah, I'm really terrified of the buzzer. I'm also one of the conveners of the Anarchist Studies Network, and we do have a feminist space that is designated for women and gender non-binary or trans people only. So if you are interested in being involved in this, or drop me an email. I think I'll put my email in the chat. And I hope to see you at our conference next year. I'm done.
That's perfect timing. Thank you very much. Okay. Just a quick note from Ian, who spoke previously. If anybody wants to contribute to the Black Flag Anarchist Review, check out blackflag.org.uk. Okay, next up, I think we have Vishvam Heckert. Could you join us on audio and video, please?
Hi, thanks, Jim.
Hi, how's it going?
So,
off you go.
Okay, so it's great to be here. I feel quite humbled by everyone who's come before. My early work was on anarchism, gender, and sexuality, particularly around ethics, methodology, published various things a long time ago, and came to understand anarchy as the art of relating freely as equals, and particularly focusing on interpersonal relationships and how that connects to the wider spheres of life. And I came to see that by studying and carefully intellectualizing and working all that out in my head, I didn't become much more capable of practicing it. And even anarchist circles, I found I wasn't experiencing the depth of anarchy that I was really looking for. And I found myself stepping away from all of that for quite a few years, and going more into research through direct experience, in particular the practices of freedom called yoga and meditation, and finding a much deeper sense of peace and the ability to connect with myself and other people in life in a deeper way, which is what I was looking for in anarchy. And I'm surprised to find myself back here, actually. It's a nice surprise to be bringing the yoga and the spiritual side to anarchist studies, and particularly exploring what sacred anarchy can look like at the moment. I recently published an article in Bella Caledonia, the Scottish web journal, and have a few more things in the pipeline that are coming together, and I'm curious to see how that might all unfold. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of research, including living our lives, as Emma Goldman might have said. Thank you very much.
Very well timed. Thank you, Vishvam. Okay, we'll have Lawrence back, please, to talk about your own research.
Thanks, Jim. In terms of my own research, I'm particularly interested in the relationship between the anarchist and the utopian traditions, focusing especially on the political significance of their intersection. In a range of different works over the years, I've argued that anarchist utopianism manifests certain distinctive ideological features that together suggest a revolutionary, realistic, and grounded utopian alternative to the dominant statist, growth-oriented, abstractly rationalist, and perfectionist utopian traditions. I'm currently working on a book project developing the theory of what I call grounded utopianism. More specifically, I'm drawing on a range of scholarship, including the anarchist and utopian scholarship, but also ecological, anti-capitalist, indigenous, degrowth, feminist, queer, and post-colonial perspectives to reimagine both the concept and the practice of utopia in a more temporally and spatially grounded form suitable to a post-anthropocentric world. And above all, this entails reimagining utopia in a way that breaks radically from modern conceptions of progress and perfectibility that have legitimized settler colonialism, the genocide of indigenous peoples, racial slavery, and now a grow or die form of civilization that's threatening the existence of all life on the planet.
Wonderful timing again. You're all very good at this. Okay, I think we've gone through everybody there. I'm going to give a little bit myself. I will time myself and try to stay to 2 minutes, but it would be weird if I hit myself with a buzzer. But so yeah, my name is Jim Donaghy. I'm based in the north of Ireland. My research looks at the overlaps between radical politics and culture. And I forgot to start the timer. Usually I'm looking at anarchism and punk. I'm currently co-editing a 4-volume series on anarchism and punk, which will be published by Active Distribution. And the first is due out later this year. I'm also leading a research project, which is titled Failed States and Creative Resistances, the Everyday Life of Punks in Belfast, Banda Aceh, Mitrovica, and Soweto. And that will see me travel to Indonesia, Kosovo, and South Africa, as well as here in Ireland, if conditions allow, to do research with punk and anarchist communities in post-conflict places on the peripheries of neoliberalism's global cultural flows. That project uses creative approaches to doing research, including working with these groups to produce compilation records of their scenes, and then using those records to places and beyond by distributing them through DIY networks. So the focus is on marginal places, and that's an effort to establish communication flows between those places, and that's a deliberate effort to decenter punk's global flows, which are too often replicating neo-colonial capitalist flows. As well as producing compilation records, we'll also publish zines in the local languages of each place, and that will help to ensure that they make a useful impact on those scenes. So it's research with, not research on or research for, and I think that's an anarchist way to approach doing research. And that'll be going on for the next 3 years. I've got a lot of people in the comment box here who are furious that I've started my timer late, so I'm just going to stop now before they go. I'll put the buzzer on. Here we go. Okay. Let's move now to a bit of general chat. So if anybody involved wants to share their video and audio for discussion, if anybody has any questions they want to put in the chat box, we can read those out, or if you would prefer to speak yourself, you can do that. And yeah, we'll get a bit of discussion going, whether that's about things you've heard from the research overviews that everyone's given, or if there are wider issues that people would like to talk about. in terms of anarchist research, anarchist academia, and so on. So feel free to join with your audio and your video. There's a bit of chat in the box here. I'll read it out because I think people following on Twitch won't be able to see the chat box. Somebody has asked whether the next Anarchist Studies Network conference will be online or in person, and Elizabeth has replied to say that we don't know yet, and we'll make a decision a bit nearer the time. For those who don't know, the Anarchist Studies Network conference takes place every 2 years. We did it online last year, so next year, hopefully, we can have some kind of in-person engagement. I think there are advantages to online conference in terms of being able to have access from a wide range of people, but I definitely see the advantages of being in person as well. It's just much more pleasurable. Does anybody else have any thoughts on online versus in-person conferences? I say online at a conference.
I'll just jump in to say this rather than type in the chat. Well, it would depend mostly on, well, COVID. It would depend on if we have access to a suitable space, and it would depend on whether we have money, because online conference was really, really cheap, and in-person conferences tend to be a bit more expensive.
Yeah, absolutely true. I don't know, I think a few other conferences have suggested a kind of a hybrid approach, but I'm not really sure what that looks like. I suppose it includes people in a room along with people on a screen, but I'm not sure what the interaction would be like there. Ellie has asked a question in the chat for you, Elizabeth. Could you say a bit more about the feminist group you were talking about, please?
Yes, it's not much more to say really. It's just it's like so the ASN has a mailing list where you subscribe, and then you get kind of updates and various things. And there is a separate one which is only for women or gender non-binary people, and we it's a bit more like it's a bit for sharing news and things as well, but it's also like for a bit of support, I guess. It came out of our attempt to make the conference more accessible and kind of address structural issues that we also see in the anarchist movement. So if you want to, I'll post a link how to subscribe to the list. Actually, I'll put it in the chat, so you can just drop an email and then you're in the list and you say hello.
Excellent, thanks, Elizabeth. Soren, there is a question here for you from Ian. Ian, do you want to jump on and ask the question yourself on screen? Then people on Twitch can see it.
Okay, yes. Obviously, Kropotkin spent a lot of time in the later part of the years defending Lamarckianism against the rise of sort of Mendelism and genetics and so forth, and the idea, and obviously he was on the wrong side of science, as was proven like after his death. I just wondered if Goldsmith had any views on that and how she reacted to the rise of sort of the genetic revolutions after Kropotkin's death, because that sort of happened in the 1920s and 30s, and I wonder if she took part in those debates.
So she was. It's a great question. She was a committed Lamarckian along with her mentor, Yves Delage. And so they were definitely on the same side of that political or scientific debate, I suppose. I think in general it's true, Lamarckianism sort of faded away. My PhD is that I'm working on is in molecular biology, so it's slightly more my wheelhouse. But Lamarckianism is also, some have argued it's sort of coming back a bit in the world of epigenetics, which is kind of an interesting question, and I don't know how I feel about that particular connection. But in any case, Goldsmith, I think, to as far as I can tell, all the way to the end, was very invested in this debate. Although later in life, she was doing a lot of other things, like she was very invested in evolutionary psychology and doing these comparative psychology analyses across, from like lower organisms, quote unquote, all the way up through, to humans. And she never stopped focusing on that sort of side of things. But definitely, I think she and Kropotkin were in agreement on that. There were other aspects, particularly in less so in science, more so in anarchism, that they had disagreements on. And just on the scientific front, I'll say that while they tended to agree, Kropotkin often deferred to her because he wasn't a formally trained scientist, right? He didn't get a PhD. So it was quite a valid thing or valuable thing for him to be in dialogue with this, at the time, student and then subsequent PhD, and also Yves Delage, which is very helpful in him giving credence to a lot of his ideas, because he was very invested in them being scientifically valid and not just sort of his thoughts. But he wasn't super well trained in experimental biology, which is where she was strongest.
Very interesting. Just some comments on conferences in terms of in-person versus virtual. Isphora highlights that traveling overseas is still very complicated. Absolutely right. And Wayne Price notes that, yes, the next ASN conference probably would be in the UK, and it would be difficult for US anarchists to get across, whereas a virtual format is easier to participate. Ben, are you around there? Maybe you'd like to talk a little, obviously you gave an introduction to ASN at the start, but any sense of what's on the horizon for the Anarchist Studies Network more widely in terms of pushing in new directions or dealing with the new virtual landscape?
I'm not, but I'm the membership secretary, so I deal with the people joining the lists and the Facebook pages and the CSA stuff. But I know Elizabeth and Lawrence are here, and they might be able to give a bit more detail about what's upcoming. I know that, obviously for, I think it was said in the chat that, I don't think any decisions can be made on future ASN conferences until we know what the COVID situation is likely to be.
Would you like to jump in, Lawrence? And I think Ben was deferring to your expertise there in terms of the future of ASN.
So just one comment about one activity. There's quite a few things that we've been planning, over the last several months. But one which is worth mentioning, particularly, there was a question in the chat from Ellie about the feminist non-binary group, is that the ASN also, and here credit goes to Thomas Swan at Loughborough University, organized was successful in an application for funds to support a series of talks by anarchist scholars who are working at the intersections between anarchism and other areas that involve marginalized groups in academia. So it was, the review process took place just a couple of days ago for this. And it was really, I think, Elizabeth can maybe speak more to this because I think Elizabeth was on the call, but just looking through the application, it was just wonderful to see this sort of work being done. And I think that hopefully in the future, this is something that the ASN will do more of. Do you want to say something more about that, Elizabeth?
I don't have much more to add, apart from, we're hoping to get another round of funding for that, and the funding is specifically for people who who don't have access to academic resources and academic money, and we were super happy with the submissions. It was absolutely wonderful. We're hoping to see some of these talks. I think they should happen by the end of the year for sure. One thing that I actually wanted to mention about the future of SN, we do have quite a lot of things going on at the moment. There is we are technically a specialist group, part of the Political Studies Association, and the Political Studies Association has annual conference every year, and next year's conference I think is going to be blended. And the topic is politics at the margins, and we think we are super well suited to actually do something really, really great at that conference. So I wanted to invite everybody who's listening to join the mailing list if you haven't, and help us brainstorm what exactly we're going to do. Like, the Political Studies Association is a kind of fairly mainstream liberal space, and it would be really great if we can go and shake it up a little bit and actually show them what politics at the margins means. I don't think they really know. Is there anything else that I was thinking of mentioning? No, I'll stop with this, I think. Yeah, and our own conference is obviously going to be happening next year, so there will be a call for papers in the next few months, I expect.
I just wanted to add really, really quickly, Jim, if I may. This was something which came out for me as well in the discussion, is that the Anarchist Studies Network is not just for academics working at universities. And I think it's really important to emphasize that, particularly we're here at the London Anarchist Bookfair, albeit virtually, to say that we welcome anybody who has an interest in anarchist studies. Independent scholars, researchers, people, who are working in a variety of different settings. And that's true with if I can add this, with the Contemporary Anarchist Studies book series as well. This is not only for academics working at universities. And I think in both cases, a common theme that we really thought about over a long period of time, and I think it's worth emphasizing, is that we really want to try to bridge that gap between academia and activism, between theory and practice, between, these are artificial separations, which we're keen to, maybe bridge isn't even the right word, do away with.
Yes, thanks, Lawrence. I think that's come across in the people speaking now. I mean, there's a fair few of us who are currently working at universities on various contracts, precarious or otherwise, but quite a number who are unemployed or working independently from academia. I think it's a good point to stress. Michael Rainsbury, you've just joined us on video and you have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wondered if there was any discussion about switching to open access for all publications for the Anarchist Studies Journal. So that's obviously a kind of complicated issue, because like these journals, organizations, a lot of the work comes from the academics, but the journal itself makes a lot of the actual money on that process. So there's a huge push around the world to kind of push back on that kind of control of the information, which is kind of an information capitalism. Like there's a whole network of open science, which I feel very disappointed with, because it's not really open science. It's just making sure that the open access can be there for people within the universities. But I think that would be a really useful thing, but it's obviously a challenging thing because the journal does a lot of work. But there have been a lot of stories about groups of academics and academic societies that are doing this kind of work and kind of push to get their journal taken off the kind of, you got to pay for it, because a lot of the research in many ways is done by people who are either paid in universities or done by volunteer. So, so I'd be interested to know if there's any discussions about that, and if there will be in the long term, because it is a hard thing to do, but it might be really useful for the Anarchist Studies Network to consider how that more broad distribution of this information could be available to people.
Did you want to jump in there, Ben?
I'm not I don't think we've got anyone from the Anarchist Studies Journal. It predates the Anarchist Studies Network. I think lots of us have been involved in the journal Anarchist Studies, but it has a kind of independent relationship from us. It's not formally run by the ASN, though most of the people involved are in the ASN. Is there, I don't suppose there's anyone from the major sort of editorial board here, is there?
I am sort of an adjunct to the editorial board. It's really Ruth Kinna and Matthew Adams who are in charge of the editorial duties at the moment. I don't think either are here. They might be watching on the live stream. But yeah, you're right. The Anarchist Studies Journal goes back to the mid-90s. So it's been quite long running. 2 issues every year. Anarchist Studies has had a long relationship with Lawrence and Vissert as the publisher. So there might be more scope for moving towards open access because Anarchist Studies isn't on Sage or the likes of Routledge or Taylor and Francis or one of these big publishing corporations. Lawrence and Vissert are actually most famous for publishing editions of Das Kapital in English. That was their big moneymaker for a long time. And they publish a very small number of journals. So it's not perfect because obviously it's not open access, but I think definitely if there were moves towards that, because Anarchist Studies has stayed away from those big corporate publishers, it could be more of a possibility. Isphora is raising points in the chat here about that the journal is incredibly expensive and there's a financial barrier to reading the articles, and those are great points. I know that at least one of the articles in every issue and the description of the artwork on the start are always made open access via the Lawrence and Vissert website. So there's limited amount of open access there, but yes, of course, it would be beneficial to extend that. So I think that's a conversation that needs to happen. And I guess it's about finding a way to do that. As Michael rightly raised, all the academic labour that goes into it is essentially already paid for or volunteered because of people's jobs, basically. So the money that needs to come back is to pay for the likes of printing and so on. And perhaps if we moved away from print issues, that might be an option for increasing open access. But at the same time, I think we're all print media book fetishists and like to have a tangible object in our hands and to stack on our bookshelves. So we'll see. I can't speak on behalf of the editorial board, but it's a conversation that should happen. Vishram just clarifies the point there that Anarchist Studies, the journal, is separate from the Anarchist Studies Network, and the journal's been around for a long time before, I think, as Ben mentioned. Has anybody else got any other issues they'd like to raise? Any burning questions? If not, I'm content to wrap things up here, if that suits everybody else. Some people are typing in the chat. I'll wait and see. Oh, it's just, yeah. Thanks, Soren, for expressing your love for the panel and your excitement about hearing all the research projects. I agree. Some really good stuff going on. Thanks, Eric. Michael has asked, how does one join the ASN network? I suppose it's just a case of joining the mailing list. Ben, would that be accurate to say?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah. I'll put my email in here, and if people just want to contact me, I'll get them straight onto the mailing list. And the mailing list counts as membership. It's like I say, we have our own membership list, which is separate to the PSA. We don't give them access to our activist list. So if you just email me, I'll get you onto the mailing list, which constitutes membership. In the past, Anarchist Studies, the journal, used to offer a discount to ASN members, which doesn't mitigate all the harms which have been discussed. but since they moved to online subscription, that's not happened. And again, it's something we'll try and chase up.
Thanks, Ben. Elizabeth notes that if you are already a member of the Political Studies Association and then you join our official group via the PSA, that the Anarchist Studies Network actually gets £1 for your membership, and then we'll use that to subvert the entire academic establishment, which would be very worthwhile. Just for people watching on Twitch, I don't think you'll have be able to see the chat there. Benjamin's email is benjamin.franks@glasgow.ac.uk. Or if you just put in your search engine Glasgow University Benjamin Franks, you'll find him there. If you drop him an email, he'll get you on the ASN list. And Lawrence Davis notes that if anyone would like more information about the Contemporary Anarchist Studies book series on Manchester Uni Press, you can email him, and his email is l.davis, Davis, at ucc.ie. Or again, if you look for University College Cork, look for Lawrence Davis, you'll find his information there. And I think that's it. I think we can wrap it up. Thanks to everybody who presented. It's great to hear about all the research that's going on. And thanks to everybody from ASN.